In 2016 and 2020, Saudi Arabia has already conducted executions during the holiday and New Year period, when it is more difficult for the international community to respond quickly. This might be the case again this year in 2022 Christmas. Saudi Arabia was previously accused of using the World Cup as a distraction after it beheaded 17 people over a 12-day period in November 2022, despite the country's leaders stating that they would not use the death penalty. On the 12th of March 2022, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia carried out the mass execution of 81 men, including 7 Yemenis, 1 Syrian and 37 Saudi nationals on terrorism-related charges and for holding deviant beliefs. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights understood that 41 were minority Shia Muslims, who had participated in anti-government demonstrations calling for greater political participation in 2011 to 2012. Rights groups accused the government of adopting restrictive regulations against religious expression and political beliefs, as well as criticizing its use of the death sentence, even for children arrested, and citing the execution as a violation of human rights. The execution was the largest carried out in the kingdom in recent years. There is no mention of how these executions were carried out. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights and a coalition of more than 30 non-governmental organizations have condemned the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for a series of executions for drug crimes, carried out in violation of international law. Human rights organizations reported that Saudi authorities executed 20 men in November for drug offenses, 12 of them foreign nationals, after suddenly lifting a moratorium on executions for defendants convicted of drug-related crimes. In January 2020, Saudi Arabia's Human Rights Commission issued an official statement, asserting that the kingdom had put in place a moratorium on executions for drug-related crimes. But Saudi authorities neither amended the nation's drugs and narcotics control law, or set forth any guidelines on how the moratorium would be effectuated. The kingdom's resumption of executions for drug crimes, after a hiatus of 2 years, reneged upon a pledge previously made by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, that we are getting rid of the death penalty in its entirety, except where someone has killed another person, or threatens the lives of many people. The number of individuals currently facing execution on drug charges is difficult to determine, because the Saudi government's handling of the death penalty is shrouded in secrecy. Nonetheless, tracking by Zor confirms that dozens of detainees are currently on death row for drug offenses, with foreign nationals and individuals from vulnerable socio-economic backgrounds overrepresented. All of them are now to be considered at imminent risk of execution. According to the Azor, as of November 25th, at least 147 people had been executed in Saudi Arabia in 2022. The organization, at least 54 people were currently awaiting executions, including 8 charged with offenses committed as juveniles. Saudi Arabia has a criminal justice system based on a form of Sharia, reflecting a particular state-sanctioned interpretation of Islam. Execution is usually carried out by beheading, with a sword and hanging, but may occasionally be performed by shooting or firing squad. Saudi Arabia performs public executions. Sentences are primarily given on confession. Human Rights Watch says the majority of people are tortured to obtain confession, and courts have not investigated it. As of April 2020, minors who commit crimes will no longer face execution when they turn 18, and would instead face a maximum of 10 years in juvenile detention facility. A 2018 report by the European Saudi Organization for Human Rights asserts that the number of beheadings in the kingdom during the first quarter of 2018 rose by over 70% compared to the same period in 2017. A public beheading will typically take place around 9 a.m. The convicted person is walked to a courtyard near the courthouse and kneels in front of the executioner. A police official announces the crimes committed by the person, and the beheading takes place. The executioner uses a sword known as a sultan to remove the condemned person's head from his or her body at the neck. After a medical examiner inspects the body and then pronounces the convict dead, a police official announces the crimes committed by the beheaded convict once again, and the process is complete. Professional executioners have beheaded as many as 10 people in a single day. Crucifixion of the beheaded body is sometimes ordered in cases where the person was a child molester or a rapist. For example, in 2009, the Saudi Gazette reported that an Abbey court had sentenced the leader of an armed gang to death and 3-day crucifixion, and 6 other gang members to beheading for their role in jewelry store robberies in Asser. On the 2nd of January 2016, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia carried out a mass execution of 47 imprisoned civilians convicted for terrorism in 12 different provinces. 43 were beheaded, and 4 were executed by firing squads. Among the 47 people killed was Shah Sheikh Nimr al-Nimr. The execution was the largest carried out in the kingdom since 1980. These executions were the first to be carried out in 2016, with rights groups claiming that Saudi Arabia had executed at least 157 people in the year prior. In 2015, it was said that this year holds the greatest number of executions since 1995. On the 23rd of April 2019, the Saudi Interior Ministry stated that the kingdom carried out a mass execution of 37 imprisoned civilians, who had been convicted, mostly on the basis of confessions obtained under torture or written by the accused's torturers, for terrorism-related allegations in 6 provinces in the country. 14 of the people executed had been convicted in relation to their participation in the 2011-12 Saudi Arabian protests in Qatif, mostly on the basis of torture-induced confessions. The executions were carried out by beheading, and 2 of the bodies were publicly hung from a pole. According to Saudi Arabia's Interior Ministry, the convicts were all Saudi nationals. 32 of those executed belonged to the country's Shia minority. One of the 32, Abdul Karim al-Hawaii, was 16 years old at the time of his alleged crime. Executions for crimes committed by those under 18 are violations of international law. According to Reprieve, 2 others were also under 18 at the time of their alleged crimes, Mutaba al-Swakat and Salma Quraish. The bodies of at least 33 out of these 37 people executed were not handed back to their respective families. The Saudi government did not publicly explain why, and had not handed back the corpses of those executed as of the 8th of April 2020. It is thought that they fear it would lead to protest by their shy minority. Thank you for watching Death Row.